City Commission, call City Commission meeting for August 6th will come to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Abraham,
Present.
Commissioner Galt,
Present.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Here.
Commissioner Wilson,
Present.
Mayor Kaler.
Present. Tonight we have Steve Cunningham of our Father's House of Paducah. Thank you for being here and doing our invocation. And Commissioner Abraham, if you would do the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Gracious God, make each of us an instrument of your grace. Weave us into a community showing forth your power and tenderness. Bless us in our differences and undergird our courage to stand together. We call on you today to gather us in your love. Lead us to better know you and glorify you on each step of the journey of our lives. In the name of Jesus, let us dedicate this time together to move forward with the love of God. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to its republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, we had a meeting this afternoon at 4:45 at the Riverfront, and I think it was good for everyone to be down there and to see the project that we're involved with Schultz Park. And Rick explained the process and the reason that we're having to spend additional monies, and had some good questions, question and answer. So we'll go on to the municipal order.
Can I ask just a couple of questions?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Everybody can ask a question.
I was going to ask just a couple of questions of Rick. Rick, when you did the,
I mean, he's going to talk to us.
oh,
Yeah,
Okay,
he'll-
I'm
he'll
sorry.
talk.
oh, okay.
I think we should have the motion first, and then Rick will come up and explain, and then we'll ask questions from the commissioners, or if they have anything they want to say. Okay? So, who has
Okay.
all right, Rich, Commissioner, please.
I move that a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Authorizing and Directing the Finance Director to Transfer $265,000 from the General Fund Reserve to the Riverfront Development Project" be adopted.
Second.
Rick?
That keeps popping up.
I don't think that's showing up too good with that river background there, but okay. Okay, Commissioner. Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about I'm sorry, this is, tell me about the borings again. You said there were, you said there were 4 borings.
Okay.
Talk about that again.
Well, you know, there were 2 commissioners that couldn't attend the Riverfront explanation by Rick. I would like for him to do an explanation here, because they missed that portion of it, and then we can all ask questions.
I thought Rick wanted me to, okay, yeah. all right.
And after he does an explanation for them, then we can all ask questions. Thank you.
Okay. Well, this is like SNL, it's kind of live TV, so I'm going to just kind of follow my cursor, if you will. The original project had the same basic shape, but was located further upstream. And if you followed that out, it would have come around and come into this area here. Now, I'm going to your boring question in a little bit, Commissioner Rhodes, but let me, share with Commissioner Abraham and Commissioner Wilson what we talked about earlier. These piling structures or gangway structures were originally 500 feet upstream, as the rest of the project was. When we actually did the soil borings or the geotechnical investigation, we had borings in this area, which would have been synonymous with this area and this area, okay? But it would be in an upstream location. We also had borings I and J that were essentially located in this area of this project and this area of this project. Now, one thing that's important about the first boring was this structure right here. We actually had a boring dead center of it up here. Okay, but when it got moved, we did not spend the additional money to go out and rebore the project for the exact location of this, because we had a spread, what we refer to as a spread of borings, that gave us an estimation of the soil conditions. Now, typically when you have a structure, you'll take a boring at that exact location. We did that in the original project. We did not do that when the project moved downstream, because we had boring I and boring J that was just adjacent to this. Now, the borings on the river were $38,000. It wasn't $38,000 to do the actual boring. It was $38,000 partially to do the borings, but mainly to rent the barges and towboats necessary to put the engineer out on the river to take those borings, because it was a floating structure that needed to be supported. Okay. When we moved the project downstream, we had estimated the pile tip elevation at elevation 272. There's actually a template, much like, and I want to put this in terms that make sense. You don't just go out there and drive a pile in free space. You have to have something that guides it. So you build this big metal frame that actually directs, and it has a high side and a low side. And it's got very little tolerance in it, and then when you slide the pile in it, it's in a direct location. So when they were putting in the framing or the template to drive these pile, they called me down there, and this was Thursday week ago. Rick, our template is not bearing at 272, and we're concerned that your piling grouping is not going to bear at 272. So we drove it another 10 feet, his template another 10 feet, and got support. So that's where this estimation of 15 additional feet came from. And he said, well, Rick, if I do my math, 272 versus 260 is 12 feet. Why'd you add 15 feet? Insurance, because you don't want to drive below that. You want that pile to be refused at or above that depth, and you can cut off the extra. We're going to wind up cutting off 3 feet of this, and it's waste. It's just like big plumbing that, you know, if you're building a house, you've got 2x4s that are cut off, so you understand that. So we'll get all those cut off at the same elevation, and then we'll add the 24-foot that goes on top of them that's already in the original price. The time that's being lost is the additional time to extend it. As I mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter whether we're adding 5 feet or 15 feet. The biggest cost is in the effort of the labor and equipment to extend it. The materials are a fixed cost. The variable costs are the time it takes in labor and equipment to extend them. You have to do that. We're estimating we'll have to do that 3 times, hopefully. In pile grouping C that's out here, they're driven much deeper. We'll get into that material earlier, and we may not have to extend those. But I would not want to come up here and discuss this with you and then come back at a later date and say, well, we were wrong on B and C, we got to extend those too. I would rather be on the conservative side and estimate that we would have to do something so we wouldn't have to have this discussion again. Now, why are we having to do this so soon? Pile grouping A is going in as we speak. Now, this big green area, and commissioners, mayor, and those of you all were out there in the field, we don't have any rock in this area here yet because these structures have to get in. You recall that this rock is short of that. Well, this green area is where rock has to be put in around these after they're in the ground. Well, you can't go and do that afterwards. You have to put the piles in first because you can't drive those piles through that rock. You have to drive it into the soil. So the piles have to go in first, and then the rock gets piled around them, or the land mass gets piled around them. And then you move on with your project. The same is true with all of them. Now, this green boundary here, that's actually when the river is at pool elevation. But the area from the green to the blue on out, that's rock that's underwater that nobody sees, that goes down to the river bottom. So this one here is actually would have to be put in before that rock's put in as well, so we can get into the river bottom. That's where we are, and the welds, I was explaining earlier, the welds, one time around these pipe takes 2 men 10 hours, or it takes 20 hours to make one weld on this pipe. So they're figuring 40 hours for each structure to be supported by the other equipment. We won't know that until we're at the end of this.
When,
Um,
I was asking, what did our engineering, and I know who the lead engineer even is, what was there, when they learned about the soft bottom, they have a comment about it? Like,
At this, okay,
gee, I wish I'd helped you catch it or something?
well, your geotechnical engineers were a subconsultant to JJR. Okay, Florence and Hudson was the geotechnical engineer on this. Their data is still good for the areas of the first 4 borings. Okay, we happen to be in an area that's just downstream of their last boring. That was actually a decision made out of my office with the engineer saying, are we feeling pretty comfortable about the soil information? We both agreed that we were in the vicinity. But as I explained in the field, anytime that anybody builds a bridge where they're driving piles, any contractor will tell you the soil is not a perfect science and the pile length is normally not perfect from an engineering point of view, because they have to get so many blows per foot before that pile has the appropriate bearing, and that comes at the elevation determined in the field on the day the hammer is on it, not in an office.
Mr. Abraham?
Any of us that's familiar with this project from, I don't know, how long has it been? I mean, we were held
2006.
We're held up because of muzzles, and so we, everybody was so excited about the project, getting it going. So that held us up for forever, and then looked like we had it worked out, and then we had to move the project, and hence here we are. So the emails that I've received, I'm sure some of you guys have received some also, commenting on the additional costs. And I had a couple that said, well, enough money spent on it, it's time to stop the spending. So as I'm reflecting on that, and I'm thinking about, okay, why are we doing what we're doing on the riverfront? Why are we developing the riverfront? And it is to bring people downtown, to create activity downtown, to folks that want to come and enjoy the river, the boating, and all of that. The ripple effect of that is can be quite substantial for our downtown businesses. So when you're looking at that, and then I'll go back to our department head. Got some emails about our department heads on this project. And since I've been here on the commission, dating back in 2000 to present, our specifically this department, Public Works, Engineering, has gone above and beyond to stretch every dollar. And the reason I'm saying that is I don't I don't want, and it's going to happen anyway, but I really want folks to understand that decisions to spend money for projects such as this, it's important, and the commission, the majority of the commission supports that. When things like this happen, and you're talking $265,000, I know myself personally, and I don't want to speak for my other commissioners, that decision is not made lightly. I mean, it's like not a problem. We'll just rob the general fund and take care of this. That's not where we are. I trust the leadership on this project. It's one of those situations where we have to do, in my opinion, we have to do this to complete the project. So there are going to be people that disagree with whatever decision we make, but I feel that I can support this with the explanation given, with the original objective of building up our downtown for our citizenry, and it's a great project, and I support that.
Commissioner Galt?
I too had some phone calls and I had an email, and people voiced their opinion obviously on both sides. But I had one phone call that really got my attention, and it was someone who had been in business here a very long time, owned multiple businesses. And one of the things he said to me is, I've oftentimes heard the commission say, you don't have a choice. He said, you do have a choice. But as I understand it, and he said, correct me if I'm wrong, your choice is not to spend the money, stop the project, send back the federal dollars, and stop the vision for our community. And that kind of struck home with me because I hadn't really put it in that context. And he said, that's exactly what you'll be doing if you stop this project. And I hadn't really thought about it in those terms because I'm looking at it in dollars and cents. And he said that the decisions that you're making are going to have a longer impact than just today. And it's more than the $250,000. It's more than what you're seeing today. And it will have a long-term impact. And as I really thought about that, I thought that's really probably a good way to sum it up. And I couldn't agree more with that. I don't know any other way else to say it. I know you made a decision, Rick, when you got those borings in, you thought that it covered it. I understand, City Manager, that's why we have a reserve fund and a contingency. None of us like going over budget. I know you don't like it. I don't like getting those emails. I don't like hearing it. But that's the way I feel about it.
Commissioner Wilson?
Well, we're a river city, and I've always felt like our riverfront was underutilized and underdeveloped, and I've wondered for years when we were going to get there, and I'm excited about it, and I feel like it's the right thing to do, and I will say I only received one email in opposition of it. People I've talked to support my decision to support this, and I want to see our community developed on the river just like other communities all up and down the river where they have all types of activities going on there. So I certainly would not be in favor of sending money back to the federal government because there are communities all over the country that will have their hands up fighting for it. Why would we give up money that's been allotted to Paducah?
Commissioner Rhodes?
I want to read something, but I want to ask one final question. In the evaluative bid that you did that, where you got it from, those bids were from what, $6 to $8 million, we got it down to the 4.5. Great job, and I mean that sincerely. So, like, do you work with Florence and Hutch? How does all that work? Just so we know, during the evaluative bid.
During the evaluation of the bid?
That where you, no, I'm using
Negotiations.
It's the negotiate where we negotiated from 6 to the 8 million down to the current 4.5.
4.49 million?
Yeah, for the 4.49.
That actually took place with myself, the city manager, and the three various contractors who wish to participate in that. A subcontractor such as Florence and Hutchinson to your general engineering contractor, which is JJR, did not participate in that.
Okay, I'm gonna read mine. So bear with me, it's not terribly long. It says, tonight will be the second time in a little more than 90 days that I will vote no on the Riverfront project. This meeting is about more money. Let me recap my problems with the project. First, I don't think this is a sustainable business model. Why? According to TVA, if all the pleasure boats locking through the dams at Barkley and Kentucky came by Paducah, we'd see a bit fewer than 3 boats a day. If they stop, 3 boats a day. Second, we've not accounted for the ongoing maintenance of the dock, the marina, and the slips. Third, after the mass fill is finished this fall, it will subside over the next 12 months. This is expected. The money to build back up to grade is now unknown, but there probably will be more money next fall. Fourth, we know we will create a park on the old Executive Inn property to connect the proposed hotel, if it's built, to the downtown area. This park has no government grant to fund it, and unless we can use money out of Phase 2 or Phase 3, it'll be our money for the park. Fifth, again, it's the money. 90 days ago when I voted no on the project, the money needed to finish the mass fill or bump out was $521,000. Well, on tonight's vote, the new money will stand at approximately $881,000. That's another $360,000 that 90 days ago we did not foresee. The city has already spent about $1.2 million to get the project started. Some people will say, we cannot stop now. I will say, it's time to douse the fire, call the dogs, the hunting's over. Now what? Well, I would say no more new city money for pilings. Finish the bump out with the park, with the grants that are available. Attempt to get Senator McConnell to allow the remaining grants to build the old park on the Executive Inn property and to eliminate the boat docks, slips, and marina from future spending. If we're not careful, we will find the story of the emperor's new clothes. Thank you.
Mayor, before you, I have a question, because that confuses me just a little bit, and I want to make sure I understand what I'm voting on.
So-
That confuses me just a little bit.
Page.
That's what I understand.
Are we not finishing the bump out with the money that we have available, and we're not building a marina? What, is that,
That's in Phase 2.
We don't have the money for a marina.
Let me turn this back on.
That's right here.
I mean, do you understand what I'm saying, Rick? We just talked
And-
about that down on the riverfront, I thought.
Right here it is.
And we have no plans for the Executive Inn property within this framework.
Right,
Of this
it's
grant
not-
money.
It's in
Right.
the projected area, but what I'm saying, but we know that if we build a hotel, we can expect people in the hotel to drive across that demolished, horrible-looking footprint of the Executive Inn to get to downtown, or to get anywhere for that matter. I mean, you'll have the bump out finished, and you'll have a proposed hotel finished, we'll assume. You can't just have this blasted out area of the old Executive Inn. So we know we're gonna spend our money.
Well, I think PRDA has some plans for that,
Okay. But it's
Alan.
still- it's-
But we don't
it's
know that we're
taxpayers'
gonna spend
money.
that.
Right.
We have no idea.
Well, I would think a reasonable person would say if you've got a beautiful hotel and a beautiful downtown, that to have this blasted out, demolished concrete between there, that looks odd. But forget that, but it says right here, FHWA, Project 2, it says Marina Service Building, $500,000.
Yeah,
The
marina,
marina service building, but that's not the marina.
the
That's
transient
that's the
boat dock.
building,
That's for the transient boat
right,
dock.
that's
Right.
the building, out here. That's a Marina Service Building, right?
Okay.
I'm just,
Couple of things. We have an opportunity, and while I have your, I guess,
Rick, I'm sorry, when you finish with this, I'd like to get John up here to talk about the money too.
okay. While we're here focused on this, you all saw the, I guess, operation that's placing the stone from the barges to the river. We have an opportunity here, Commission, and we're finalizing these numbers as we speak, but this came up, and for every yard or excuse me, for every ton that we place here, that's $12 a ton. Okay? $12 a ton to place it. Buy it and place it. Or buy it, ship it, and place it. Right now, Commissioner, I wanted to show you this area right here. I don't know what I did right here. Did I do something? Right here, this area here is concrete slab that is still in the ground that one day we're going to have to pay to have that removed for that. We've estimated that tonnage here around 1,500 tons of concrete. This concrete can be removed and placed in this fill, which will offset tonnage at $12 a yard that's coming down, which will be the start of the removal. Now, the contractor has agreed to relocate this for $18,096. He sent an email. We've not finalized that number yet. Okay? But if you were to take $18,096 and divide it by 12, that's the number of tons that it's going to replace that's coming from Lafarge that's here. So you're going to get kind of a 2-for-1 on this. But I told the contractor I don't have a pay item for removing the executive end slab. Okay? All I have is a pay item for tons of rock and pile structures A, B, and C. Now this is essentially a 1-for-1, but it's actually a 2-for-1 opportunity. That would include that into this contract, whether or not the mayor, commission, and this body wish to take advantage of that, because the end of the project, it's not going to really matter, because it doesn't matter whether it comes from Lafarge and offloaded on barges and put there, or whether or not we get it, pull this concrete up and put it in here. For those 1,500 tons, the cost is going to be the same.
I mean, that's.
But if we don't take advantage of that, then we're going to pay some other contractor in the future to remove this concrete for any opportunities we might seek there. My question is, do we want to seek that opportunity today? Or would we, but that would require that we discuss that. Now, I don't have that number finalized. That's why I'm not prepared to talk about that. But since we are talking about removing that concrete, and I think any aspirations of any activity with regard to convention centers, this is somewhat of a placeholder for that activity as far as parking for any activity to take. But this, from here down, this area here is land that is subject to other boards' decisions and this board's decision on what do we do with this in the future. But I guarantee you we won't be using that slab for anything.
Right.
So should we take this opportunity to remove that and put that in that fill?
Well, it's $12 a ton times 1,500 tons, that's $18,500, so it's, yeah. And that, I mean, that part is a good deal from a dollars and cents standpoint.
Rick, talk a little bit too about when we were down there looking at this, you said that amount, you could still negotiate this.
Because we have not driven the template structures.
Right.
We haven't driven the template structures for B and C. The reason for that is they reuse the template over and over and over again. We'll know more about this when we drive the template for that. We may not be extending it as much, but remember what I said. It doesn't matter whether you're extending it 5 feet or 15 feet. The cost is subject to being the same because the time is in the labor to make the splice on that. It is my hope that we will get into good material earlier on this, but that's a hope. I'm more comfortable that we won't have to extend this one based on the pile tip depth, but I don't want to say that until I drive the template, but I don't have this meeting 3 times.
Which is why the upper end of the cost estimate is
Yes.
represented in the order of 264. Rick is saying is that he has hope and some reason to believe it would be less than that, so we just don't know yet.
Any other questions for Rick?
I'm good.
Thank you, Rick.
You said you want to talk to John?
John, would you come up and explain where we're getting the money?
Well, the municipal order before you says that we're asking the commission to authorize us to spend money out of the general fund's reserve. And what simply said this, in your ordinance, in your budget ordinance, every year that we pass, you all pass, we say that at a minimum we will have 8% reserve, which means 8% of the revenue that we earn that year. So like right now, that's about $2.5 million. Anything in excess of that, you're in compliance with your own rules. And what we're saying is we want to use money that we have set aside in excess of the 8%. We anticipate that last year, that just ended June 30, we'll have more than $265,000 in excess of the 8% reserve. Next year, the year we're in right now, you all just passed that budget. We're going to draw from there because we have a deficit. We anticipate we're going to spend more than we brought in. So it's almost a wash between the 2 years, but we have cash sufficient in excess of the 8% to cover this. If we don't use it the full 265, then that goes right back to the reserve to be used another day for something else. The reserve is used for cash flow purposes. It's used for things like ice storms. If the FEMA doesn't give us the cash, that's how we would pay for things like that.
John, for clarification, we did not use any reserve money to balance the general fund budget this year.
Fiscal 14 we did.
Okay.
We did. We will. We hope that we won't need it, but we anticipated that we might. So that's been set out in the ordinance.
Wasn't about this much money?
I think it was
in the budget.
$246,000, so it's real close.
It was a very small amount in proportion
Yeah.
to the general
It
fund
is.
budget. And again, what John is saying is based on historical precedent, even though we are running a much leaner budget than we used to, that would be well within the range of what we would expect under normal conditions to underspend the budget.
Exactly. And the year that just ended, when we started 12 months or 14 months ago, we thought the budget was completely balanced. We didn't anticipate taking anything out of the reserve. In fact, we'll probably add back to the reserve a little bit. I mean, that's what it's for. And so some years we spend more than we bring in. Some years we bring in more than we spend. And fortunately for us, we've brought in more than we spent over a number of years. And so we're fortunate we're able to use that when we need to use it and replace it in good years and use it in lean years.
Any questions for John? Thank you, John.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make a comment. This has been a project that we got the federal and state and set aside city funding 7 years ago to start on. Prior to that, it had been a vision of this community leaders that they had been working on obtaining the funding from federal and state and setting aside city funds for years prior to that. So this has been a project and a vision of the community for a very long time. Am I correct? Some of you were on the city commission then?
Correct.
And that's,
In the phone call that I received, the gentleman said over 20 years, and I don't know where he got that number. I mean, he's been involved in the community, and he brought that to my attention over 20 years. And I mean, that's why I said it really hit home with me. I'd not put it in that perspective, but it's.
It takes a lot of work to get federal funding. I mean, I feel like now we should be working on more, getting the next steps on all of that. But it takes a lot of work to get that for a community.
and we have all of the cities around us that have done great jobs with their riverfront with federal money.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm always a little bit jealous of Owensboro because they got $40 million.
I am
We
too.
got,
And they've already
how much,
spent, they're
Rick?
spending it.
Total, they got $40 million, we got 11.
I might mention, Owensboro does not have a marina, though. They have a beautiful riverfront, but they don't have a marina.
Owensboro got $40 million from one grant that only required satisfying one organization, we've got 5 grants that have 5 different rules, and the pots of money are smaller, and it's harder to make projects fit pots of money. And that is what has made this project extremely, extremely difficult, because very seldom are you going to have a vision and then be able to have an engineer design something that fits that purse for that. And that's what, it would be a whole lot easier if we had one grant of $40 million and had a $38,686,000 project than to have this piecemealed money that's coming in. That's made this project so extremely difficult to build, and not only to build, but also to keep the project, or the education of the project, on task with the public. Because right now the public believes that we're building a marina. We are actually building a placeholder for a marina. We do not have funding for a marina at this time, but we will be building infrastructure, like the Marina Service Building and the transient boat dock, that is synonymous with the marina, but there will be no slips for this project in all of the money that we currently have. That has to come at a later date, when hopefully we get some public-private partnership on that piece of ground in here that may be an interest, because once you have developers come to town, and you can talk about these pictures all the time, but until they're in place and they say, hey, that's in place, I might want to be interested in doing business here, because I actually can see, touch, and feel that, not something that's on paper. So that's going to make the dynamics on this property here very interesting in the future once this is in place.
And, you know, another reason, Commissioner Wilson, that we do, and Commissioner Abraham and Galt and Rhodes, that we do things like this is for people like Hoopers, who put their faith in downtown Paducah and moved here how many years ago?
Oh, gosh, it's been at least 2007 and 8.
And that was because Craig Sims believed
He did.
in downtown Paducah.
He did.
He's a local businessman that started a business, Hoopers, on his own, with his own money, came to downtown Paducah because he believed in downtown Paducah. Craig died not too long after he moved to Paducah, to downtown Paducah. His family still is down here working to make their business a success. And those are the people that we are doing this for. We're not doing it to make us up here look great, or, you know, like we're a big deal with what we're trying to get done. We're doing it for people that are trying to earn a living, for tourism, and for future economic development. We're doing it for this $17 million hotel that we're going to get here. You know, what if we said we're going to quit this, we're not going to finish this project? How do you think that would make those hoteliers feel? That wouldn't be very confident about moving to downtown Paducah. You know, they need to know that we have the faith to make downtown successful, because downtown is the heart of our city. So those are the reasons that we do this, not for us, but for the people that live here in Paducah and that come to visit here in Paducah. So that's all I have to say.
I don't want to make a commercial, but my wife and I live in Lower Town, and we have 2 coffee shops, one in Lower Town and one downtown. So don't paint me as I'm not a supporter of downtown, please. Thank you.
I didn't know that I was doing that.
Well,
I'm just talking about the project in general. I'm not
part of the
making
downtown.
specific attacks on you, Commissioner Rhodes, at all. I'm sorry if you're sensitive to that. All right, City Clerk, you want to call the roll?
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
no.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Kaler.
Aye. City Manager's report?
I have nothing other than to request the commission have executive session to discuss acquisition or disposal of real property. Do have one public comment.
Mm-hmm. Any commissioner comments? Okay, we have a public comment. Hal Cates, if you'll come up, please.
I'm here to make a comment about the lack of the Paducah Police Department not following through with the city ordinance of dogs have to have a muzzle on them. It's been a pet peeve of mine for 2 or 3 years. I've asked them and asked them and asked them to make sure that they follow this city ordinance, and they do not or will not follow through with this. I fear sometimes for my safety of my child, any other child that's in the neighborhood. We're talking about Live on Broadway, Big Brown Truck Pull, Lower Towns Arts Festival. Just last Saturday night, I asked one policeman, I saw 8 dogs without muzzles on them, and I asked one patrolman, why don't you take care of this problem? And he said, I'm not here all the time. They have somebody that does that, and they told me not to bother with it. And all dogs will bite. I don't care if somebody's up there, if they pull their tail or do something, and it's just a safety issue that I think should be addressed. Which ordinance do you follow? If you're not going to do one, why have laws to do them all? Do you pick and choose? That's all I'm asking.
That's a good point. Someone brought that up to me not very long ago, and Mayor and Commissioner, I do think that's something that we should look at, because they brought it up to me in a completely different perspective, but the thought was, do we really want to allow animals and such at these events? Because if we're not going to enforce the ordinance, then should we even allow them at the events? Maybe we should really step back and look. And I think from the police department's perspective, and Assistant Chief Barnhill or Chief Berry, you all may want to address this. I think it may be difficult for you all to enforce it from the standpoint that people will say, I'm going to go get the muzzle, or let me go get my muzzle. I have one in the car. They leave to go get it. And the fact is they don't. They just walk somewhere else in the event, and then they don't. So, do you make them leave the event right there, and they don't want to seem unfriendly if it's a tourist? It's the catch-22. That's what I continually hear. And I hear your frustration. It's a safety issue.
Yeah.
If you've ever been attacked by a dog, you'll understand. And I've had a daughter that was almost killed by a Doberman Pinscher. And they said, the dog's friendly. The next thing I know, he's got it by the throat. And I'm just asking, which one's ordinances are you going to follow? If you're not going to do them all, why have one?
Now, I own dogs, and I understand. I do.
I would like to, Chief, or,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if we rework that ordinance, Chief, and just banned dogs at events like barbecue, Lower Town Art Festival, Live on Broadway, dragon boat races, all of those things that we have in the community, and that would also be the Fountain Avenue event that they have. What else? What other big
Say
events?
fun runs would be another.
Fun runs.
Yes.
All of those, just ban dogs, no dogs. Of course, you can never, ever get the word out to all the people. It doesn't matter what you do. If it's on websites, it's on TV, it's in the newspaper, flyers sent out. You never get the word out to everyone. So would it be easier to enforce, you can't bring your dog, you have to leave right now, then you need to put a muzzle on your dog? Which would be easier to enforce?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, and Manager. I think the issue here is that anytime you have an ordinance that it's hard to enforce, and you're always going to have to look at it and see whether or not you need to make some changes. That's one of the pet peeves of mine, to have a huge event. You have folks walking around with dogs that don't have a soft muzzle on them. So I think that it should be looked at and see if you can make some adjustments. One of the things that we have to be concerned about is the fact that we're the center for 4 states. We may get the word out to folks that live right here in our area, but the other states, some other cities might not get the word out. And this happened time and time again. I stopped people, and they're from out of town, and they didn't know. So if you're going to have an ordinance, you need to follow that, or you need to make an adjustments to that ordinance. So I wouldn't have a problem at all with not being able to bring dogs to those events.
My comment on that would be, then there would be some people who wouldn't come as well. So I would think we'd want to take a hard look at the enforcement issue before making the decision to disallow animals altogether. And I know it may not be the highest priority at certain times under certain conditions, but I have personally witnessed people being sent off from Live and Broadway grounds with animals not muzzled. So it's not that it doesn't happen at all. There are instances clearly when it has not been enforced, but I think stepping up enforcement would be the first place we'd want to look on something like this.
Could we see what other cities do? I mean, other cities, I mean, how do they wrestle with this problem? Because it's, I mean,
My daughter lives in Richmond, Alan, and they don't have, their dogs are not muzzled at all. They have a farmer's market, huge farmer's market down the street from their house.
I mean-
Dogs everywhere.
I just remember in the Arts and Music Festival, there's this nice lady that had a dog with no muzzle, and she's from Louisville or someplace way away from here, and the policeman said, you're supposed to have a dog with a muzzle.
Or a muzzle.
She
with
said,
a
or a
dog.
muzzle, I'm sorry, a muzzle with a dog. Sorry. And she said, well, I don't. She said, do I have to go back to Louisville, Kentucky to go back home? Can I not enjoy the festival? And it's really and I was bitten twice. I have been bitten twice as a runner. And it's no fun. But golly, it's
What
a
if,
tough deal.
could
Have you all noticed
Could
it as
you
a
all
problem?
I'm sorry, but at events, could you all have muzzles on your person, so to speak?
Oh, wow.
Would be available.
Well, I mean, in all seriousness, in organizing events, we have tried to have muzzle vendors there to help with that.
Yes.
I mean, we've tried to do that, I know. And that may be what some other communities do, and maybe it's making them more available at the entrance. I don't know the answer. I'm just giving you what I've heard.
I think that's a fine idea.
Just
Make
put
it
'em
the
on your
responsibility of the event organizer
Yeah.
to
Yeah, I mean, maybe,
maintain an inventory of things and.
I don't know. I've just,
Chief Barry, have you all noticed it? Your department, have y'all talked about that at the festivals? I mean,
Oh,
I've been
yes.
to Live on Broadway several times. I didn't notice it, and I am very in tune with dogs, in particular big dogs that wouldn't have that on. I haven't noticed it, but have you all talked about it?
Yes, we have. And last year, we tried to market it a little more. We tried to have more signs out. And one of the points that you just brought up, if you want to, you need to control access. And with a lot of our festivals, there are so many entrance points that it's kind of hard. And we also try to have vendors there that would have these the muzzles. If someone from out of town came in, enjoy the festival, but there's someone over there with a soft muzzle, so you can comply with the ordinance. So the city manager alluded to, yes, we could step it up a little bit more with more signs and more enforcement. So rather than just give up on it, maybe we should take a good look at it the next huge event that we have and decide whether or not we want to make some adjustments in it.
I've never understood why people brought dogs to a barbecue festival.
well, I think that may be the next big event we have. Oh, okay. It is big. It's true.
Thank you. What?
I worry more about the dogs not having water on their feet. We walk around barefooted, we don't like that. The hot pavement, that's what I think is going out. Other than biting, I don't want that to happen, but I just see too many dogs that need water, or the people are standing there talking, and the dogs are, like this.
Bad parents. Bad parents.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, Mayor Taylor, you're a responsible dog owner. How many times have you taken your dog to the Arts and Music Festival?
We don't.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank everybody, and good discussions tonight. Appreciate you all coming here and being part of the commission meeting and part of government. Okay, we have executive session. Who has that?
I haven't. I move that the board go into closed session for discussion of matters pertaining to the following topics. Future sale or acquisition of specific parcels of real estate is permitted by KRS 61.8101B.
Second.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Kayler.
Aye. We will not be taking action, and we will not be coming back to make a decision.